Welcome, traveler, to Papa Past, boring history for sleep. Tonight, let us gently step away from the noise of the present, into a time so far removed that the world we know would feel like a dream to those who lived then. We are going to the far north beyond the forests of Europe, beyond the stormy seas, to the fjords, the valleys, and the silent snows of Viking lands. But this is not a tale of conquest or glory. This is a quiet journey, a journey into the deep and frozen winters of the Viking world, where days passed slowly, where light was fleeting, and where survival meant enduring months of biting cold and relentless hunger. Tonight, we won't hear the clash of swords. We'll hear the lowing of livestock in a shared home, the creak of wooden beams under frost, the murmured prayers to gods older than memory. So rest your body, still your breath, and close your eyes if you wish. Let your thoughts drift like snowflakes. You are safe here. The fire is warm, and the past soft and distant is ready to unfold before you. The snow has fallen again. Thick and quiet, it covers everything like a shroud. There are no roads, only footpaths, worn over time, now invisible beneath the white. You step outside, just for a moment, and the cold hits you like a memory. Sharp, immediate, heavy. Your breath fogs the air before your face, swirling and disappearing. You pull your cloak tighter. The wool is damp from yesterday's snowmelt. It never fully dries. Nothing does, not in winter. You turn and walk back toward the low house behind you. A turf house half buried in the earth, like it's trying to escape the wind. Its roof is living, covered in sod and thin grasses that now slumber beneath snow. The walls are made of thick stone, sealed with layers of mud and timber. There's no paint, no decoration, just necessity. You duck to enter. The doorway is short, both to keep out the wind and to trap what little warmth the family has managed to preserve through the long night. Inside, it's dark, dim, not from absence of light, but from thickness of air. Smoke lingers. Always. It hangs low, curling in eddies near the ceiling beams. The hearth has been lit, but the fire is small. Wood is scarce. You blink. It takes a while to adjust. The air smells of old wool and wet fur, of ash and bodies, salted fish, damp straw. Over the weeks, you've stopped noticing. But today, you notice, and it clings. To your left, someone stirs. Perhaps it's the eldest, already tending to the coals, or a child, fumbling with a bone needle. There's no privacy here. Not ever. The room is long and narrow, shared by all parents, children, the elderly, even livestock during the coldest nights. A low bleat cuts the silence. A goat, shifting in its stall near the door. Its warm body radiates heat, a precious commodity. You nod toward it, silently thankful. The bed you left is just straw and cloth. You miss it already, though it never offered much comfort. At least it was warm. At least it was shared. A fire needs feeding. Someone adds bark and slivers of pine and a chunk of peat. It smolders reluctantly. The flame flickers up, casting your family in flickering amber. You can see their breath, yours too. Outside, the sun has not yet risen. In this far north land, daylight is a brief thing, 4 hours, maybe 5, of sullen gray. On many days, the sun never clears the hills, just a dim suggestion above the horizon before it sinks again. Time is not kept by clocks, but by chores, by habit, by hunger. And hunger is constant. This morning's meal is hot, at least. A bowl of thick barley porridge, cooked slowly overnight. Someone stirred it in the dark hours while the rest slept. There's no honey, no spices. Maybe a few dried berries. Maybe a sliver of root vegetable, sliced thin to stretch it. There is salt, though. Always salt. You eat slowly. You do not speak. There's no point. Your hands are cracked. The skin at your knuckles is red and split. It hurts to flex them, but you must, because the day's work does not wait. Outside, the world is white and silent. Your first task is to fetch water. The stream is frozen, as it always is this time of year. You know where to strike the ice. You've done this 100 times. Still, your fingers ache as you chip with a small axe head lashed to a wooden handle. You gather the ice in a pail and carry it home. It will melt by the fire slowly. Your toes sting with every step. The snow is deep. It creaks underfoot, muffling every sound. You're alone in it, even with the village around you. Other homes are tucked into the hillsides. You see the faint trails of smoke rising from their chimneys, thin threads against a gray sky. No one waves. No one talks. Not now. You return home. Place the pail by the hearth. The ice glistens. It will melt eventually. Now it's time to help mend the nets. There's no fishing right now, not until the ice breaks, but the nets must be maintained. You hold them up to the dim light, searching for broken knots. Your fingers fumble. The twine is stiff with cold. A child sneezes behind you. Someone coughs. You do not turn around. Illness is always near. Fevers, lungs that fill and do not clear. You've lost people to the cold, to the breath sickness, to wounds that festered in the dark. And still you continue. Outside, others are chopping wood. Slowly, carefully. A wrong swing can mean a lost thumb. There are no doctors. No remedies beyond boiled herbs, poultices, or the whispered words of the Volva, the seer woman. She came by last week. She said the winter would be long, and colder still. You believe her. In the quiet moments, there is spinning. Wool, raw from the sheep, must be cleaned, teased, twisted. You help wind it around the spindle. Your grandmother's hands move with a rhythm older than memory. Her fingers are thin, the knuckles gnarled, but her work is sure. You ask her a question not with words, but with your eyes. She begins to speak. It is not a story so much as a memory. She tells you about the winter when the fjord froze solid, when they boiled bark to make broth, when they lit no fires for fear of raiders seeing the smoke, when the old man down the slope laid down and never rose again. But she says it with calm, with certainty, not with fear. This is the way of it, she says. You nod. Later, you help patch a hole in your boots. You use sinew saved from autumn. The leather is brittle, and the lining inside is nearly worn through. But you need them. You must go with your father to the ridge tomorrow to check the trap lines. If the gods are kind, there will be a hare. Maybe two. You think about the gods often. They are always watching. Odin, who gave up an eye for knowledge, sees much. Thor, with his hammer, protects the home. Freyr brings fertility. Skadi walks the snow in silence. And Loki, well, Loki is unpredictable. Some say he causes mischief. Others say he teaches hard lessons. Tonight, before bed, your mother lights a small lamp in front of the carved wooden figures. She does not speak, but you know she is asking for protection, for warmth, for food. You echo her prayer in your heart. As night falls again, the wind returns. You pile straw on the hearth. Cover the ember bed. You've learned not to let it die. Rebuilding fire is work. Keeping it alive is wisdom. You lie down again, beside the same siblings, on the same furs. You tuck your feet under the dog. He shifts, grumbles, then sighs. Someone hums an old song. You close your eyes. The fire flickers against the beams. And you think of spring, of the ice breaking, of sunlight that lasts more than a few hours, of green things pushing up through soil, of rain that does not freeze, but it is a long way off. In this world, survival is not won. It is practiced. Every chore, every breath, Every act of patience is a quiet form of defiance against the cold. You do not complain, you endure. You exist within the rhythm of the seasons, slow, circular, unmoving. And if you were to visit this world for a single day, you would not last, not because it is cruel, but because it demands something rare: stillness, acceptance, endurance, belonging. The Viking winter is not a punishment. It is a teacher, and its lesson is written in silence, in frost, in firelight. Let us now turn from the quiet endurance of daily life to the grand arc of a single man's story. One not of stillness, but of motion, of ambition, distance, and return. A man shaped by exile, a man tempered in war, a man remembered in legend. His name was Harold Sigurdsson, but history calls him Harald Hardrada, the hard ruler. He was born into a Norway that was not yet a nation. The year was 1015. The land of fjords and pine forests was still fractured, divided among chieftains, clans, and kings who ruled patches of land like wolves guarding their dens. Law varied from valley to valley. Oaths were made, broken, reforged, and Harold was born into a family of warriors and would-be kings. His older half-brother was Olaf Haraldsson, a fiery and devout Christian king who had once ruled, then fled, and now plotted to return. Harold idolized Olaf, not just as a brother, but as a model of strength and destiny. By age 15, Harald had already learned the sword, not in sport, but in need. He had seen men fight, had trained beside seasoned warriors, had listened to his brother speak of Christ, of kingship, of the destiny of Norway. And so, when Olaf launched his return from exile in 1030, Harold rode beside him through the forests, across the rivers, into the valley of battle. They met their enemies at Stiklestad. It was a field of tall grass, framed by trees and cloud. The rebels came from all directions: farmers, jarls, even men who had once sworn loyalty to Olaf. It was said the ground shook from the shouting. Harold fought, and he saw Olaf fall. The king was struck down, some say by a spear, others by betrayal. Either way, the battle was lost. The dream of a united Norway shattered in the mud. Harold, though only a boy, stood tall among the chaos. Wounded and bloodied, he was carried off the field by loyal men and hidden in the wild. His life hung by a thread, but Harold did not die. He escaped across the mountains into Sweden, then eastward, following the trade routes of the Varangians, the Norse, who had long roamed the rivers of what is now Russia and Ukraine. Through the land of the Rus, he arrived at the court of Prince Yaroslav the Wise, ruler of Kiev. Harold offered his sword. In return, he received refuge and time to recover. He stayed there for years, learning, listening, gaining favor. His name began to echo again, not as a prince in exile, but as a warrior rising. And then he left, further south, to Constantinople, the great city, Miklagard, as the Norse called it. It must have overwhelmed him. Here were towers clad in gold leaf, churches that echoed with chanted prayers in Greek and Latin, merchants from Persia, Arabia, Egypt, spices, silks, scrolls, a city alive with color, sound, and scent. Here, Harald joined the Varangian Guard, the emperor's elite foreign bodyguard, made mostly of Norsemen, Saxons, and Rus. He stood at the palace gates. He fought in marble courtyards. He served not one emperor, but many. Over 17 years, Harald rose through the ranks. He became not just a soldier, but a commander. He led expeditions across the empire into Sicily, Bulgaria, North Africa, even the Holy Land. The sagas say he fought pirates, repelled rebellions, and even helped depose an emperor. But Harold was not just collecting victories. He was collecting wealth. Quietly, methodically, Harold sent his treasure back north. Gold, silver, silks, rare weapons, all packed into chests, sealed with runes, and shipped home under the care of trusted men. By the time he left Byzantium, he was said to be among the wealthiest Norsemen alive, and he returned not as a refugee, but as a king in waiting. In 1046, Harold landed in Norway. His brother Olaf had long since died, and had even been canonized as a Saint Olaf, the Eternal King. Olaf's son, Magnus the Good, ruled now. But Harold wanted more than a reunion. He wanted the throne, and he had the means to demand it: a fortune, an army, a name sung in distant lands. So he approached Magnus not with sword, but with terms. Co-rule. Magnus agreed, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of respect. But within a year, Magnus died, whether by illness or intrigue, no one knows for certain, and Harald Hardrada became king of Norway. His rule was hard, not cruel, not unthinking, but firm, unyielding. He centralized authority, raking the power of rogue chieftains. He restructured taxation, demanded tribute, reformed the coinage. He commissioned churches expanding Christianity while still tolerating lingering pagan customs in the countryside. He brought law where there had been custom, order where there had been tradition, and not everyone liked it. Rebellion simmered. More than once, he put them down with fire and steel. But Norway began to take shape, not as a loose confederation of clans, but as something resembling a state. Harold held it all together through sheer will. But he was not content. His eyes turned west, to Denmark, whose throne he believed was rightfully his through old dynastic claims. He launched invasion after invasion, summer raids, winter campaigns. Sometimes he won towns, sometimes he lost ships, but never did he gain the crown. Still, he would not let go, until something changed in the West. England. In 1066, King Edward the Confessor died without an heir. The English throne became a prize with multiple claimants. One of them was Harald Hardrada. Why? Through a promise made by the previous Danish king to Magnus, passed on to Harold. Thin, perhaps. But for Harold, it was reason enough. He assembled a fleet, some say 300 ships, an army of seasoned warriors. He crossed the North Sea and landed in the north of England. At first, all went well. He defeated the English earls at the Battle of Fulford near York, took control of the region, demanded hostages, planned to consolidate. Then came Stamford Bridge. The English king, Harold Godwinson, marched north at a pace few thought possible. His army arrived nearly unannounced. Harold, caught off guard, had left many of his men unarmored. Still, he fought. The battle was fierce, brutal, prolonged, and then it happened. An arrow, a lucky shot or a divine one, struck Harold in the neck. He died on that field, tall, proud, fighting. Just as he had lived, his army was shattered. His fleet fled, and of the hundreds of ships that came to England, only a few dozen returned. His body was taken home eventually, laid to rest in Trondheim, and with his death, the Viking Age ended. Harold's life was epic, not just in scope but in shape. A boy who fled battle, a man who conquered cities, a king who ruled with iron and gold, a dreamer who reached too far. Even today, historians debate his legacy. Was he a tyrant, a reformer, a warlord? Perhaps all three. But what is certain is that he was the last, the final Viking king to seek empire through sword and sea. And when he fell, an age fell with him. The wind returns now, softer than before. The fire crackles. You have walked beside kings and wandered through courts made of gold. You have watched a legend rise and fall, and now we go deeper still, not into palaces or battlefields, but into the soil, where the Vikings buried their dead, with secrets still sleeping beside them. The fire dims to coals. A low wind hums through a stand of distant pine. The air is still. We have walked through snow and shadow. We have stood at the hearth of a winter home and followed the long arc of a king's ambition across distant seas. Now, let us descend into the quiet, into the earth, into the mysteries the Vikings left behind, not in words, but in wood and stone. When the dead are buried, they do not always rest alone. Sometimes they are laid with the tools they carried in life: an axe, a comb, a spindle, a sword. Sometimes they are surrounded by wealth necklaces, coins, imported silks, antler carvings, pieces of glass from lands they never saw. And sometimes they are laid in ships, not beside one, not near one, but in one, a full-sized boat, built as if for travel only. The journey now leads not across the sea, but into the next world. These are the Viking burial ships. They are some of the most mysterious, evocative, and haunting remnants of Norse culture. When we uncover one, we do not simply find a grave. We find a story, a silent saga, written in the arrangement of bones and boards, in the rusting of weapons, in the tilt of a horse's skull beside its master. And each one is different. Let us begin with a question. Why a ship? Why not just a mound of earth? A circle of stones? A coffin? To understand this, we must first understand what the Vikings believed about death. In Norse mythology, life is a journey, and death is not its end, but its passage to something else. Another place, another way of existing. Some might go to Valhalla, the hall of the slain, where warriors feast with Odin, preparing for the final battle of Ragnarok. Others might go to Folkvanger, the field ruled by the goddess Freya, where fallen fighters dwell in peace. Still others might return to the earth to dwell with their ancestors, or sail beyond the rim of the known world, into shadowed lands the sagas whisper about, but never name. And so the dead must travel. Not drift, not fade, but go somewhere. And what better vessel for such a journey than the very thing the Norse revered in life? A ship. The building of a burial ship was not casual. It was deliberate, ceremonial. First, the ship itself, sometimes a full-sized longship, other times a smaller vessel, was placed in a dug trench, the bottom lined with fabric, skins, or boards. The prow sometimes faced west, toward the unknown. Then came the body, a man or woman, or both. Sometimes a child. They were dressed in fine clothes, embroidered wool, fur-trimmed cloaks, brooches of bronze and silver. Their hands were often folded across the chest, their faces sometimes covered. Around them, their belongings. Weapons, shields, tools, food, goblets, coins, hair combs, glass beads. Everything needed for the afterlife. In some burials, animals were placed alongside: horses, dogs, even falcons. They were not symbols. They were companions, meant to walk with the dead, meant to serve, protect, or provide. And sometimes, more than animals, servants, slaves, people, sacrificed by blade, by strangulation, or poison to accompany their master. A grim practice, yes, but one rooted in the belief that the journey beyond death was a continuation, not a parting. The funeral itself could last days. Feasts were held, stories told, songs sung. And finally the ship was buried, sometimes covered with turf, creating a long mound shaped like the vessel beneath. Sometimes burned before burial, reduced to ash and memory. And the grave was closed, but not forgotten. Let us walk now through one such ship, the most famous, the Oseberg ship, discovered in 1904 near Tønsberg, Norway. It is one of the most remarkable archaeological finds in Viking history. A full-sized oak ship, nearly 22 meters long, buried around the year 834 CE. It had once sailed the seas. Its hull showed wear from the water. But for this journey, it sailed no farther than the soil beneath a farm field. Inside were the remains of two women, one elderly, the other younger. Who they were is still debated. Some say one was a noblewoman, a queen, perhaps, or a priestess. Others believe she may have been a vulva seer, keeper of old magic and runes. Their bones were fragile, partially decayed, but still held echoes of who they were. They lay surrounded by grandeur, wooden carts, intricately carved, sledges, buckets, cooking gear, textiles dyed in colors that still whisper after 1,200 years, feathers, seeds, a bed of down. And most hauntingly animals. 4 dogs, 2 cows, a bull, several horses. They had been sacrificed, carefully placed, as if posed for a last farewell. The Oseberg burial was not a rushed affair. It was ritual. It was memory made physical. And yet, it raises questions. Why 2 women? Why such wealth? And why was the ship already looted? You see, when the Oseberg mound was opened, it was clear someone had been there before. Grave robbers, centuries ago, had taken much gold, weapons, anything of obvious value, but they left the wood and the secrets carved into it. We can also travel to Gokstad, another famous ship burial. Here, too, was a full-sized longship. Here, too, lay a single man, likely a king or powerful chieftain. Tall, broad-shouldered, aged in battle. He was buried with 12 horses, dogs, hawks. And beside him, weapons, beds, tents, kitchen tools, and gaming pieces. The details suggest a man of wealth and influence, but also of play, of thought, of tradition. A man who rode hard and ruled well. But again, no name survives. He was buried not as an individual, but as a symbol, a soul sent onward. There are other burials smaller, but no less evocative. Children buried with wooden toys, women buried with looms, brooches, and the keys to their homes, men buried with shields worn by years of service. Even ship-shaped stone settings laid flat on the earth, marking the shape of ships for those who could not afford real ones. Always the ship. Always the journey. In Viking culture, death was not the end of presence. The dead could linger, they could guide, they could guard, but they could also haunt. The Norse believed in the Drog, restless dead who rose from their graves, still seeking, still hungry, still bound to the world. To prevent this, graves were built with care, sometimes bound with stones, sometimes sealed with spells, sometimes opened years later and rearranged to quiet the soul within. The dead were not banished. They were respected, even feared. And the ships? They remain, silent, patient, sleeping beneath the soil for centuries. And when we uncover them carefully, reverently, we are not disturbing the dead. We are listening. Listening to the grain of oak. To the twist of iron nails. To the echo of a gudde. Long forgotten goodbye. Each burial is a whisper of love. Of fear. Of belief. Even now, we do not understand them all. Each time a new ship is found, it adds to the picture, but also deepens the mystery. What made one person worthy of a ship and another not? What do the carvings mean? What songs were sung over these graves? What dreams traveled with the dead? We may never know, but the silence they left behind is enough to feel. The wind has died down now. The fire is low, but steady. A distant owl calls into the night. The ship rests still, covered in earth, touched by time. And if you listen, if you are very quiet, you might hear it creak softly in the darkness, still waiting, still sailing. We have seen the hearth of the poor. We have walked beside the king. We have knelt beside the honored dead. Now, let us step into a different world, one not ruled by frost or silence, but by wealth, alliances, and obligation. Tonight, we are invited to feast not with farmers or fishermen, but with the Jarls, the Viking elite. The Jarl was not merely rich. He was positioned, a leader, yes, a warrior, perhaps, but more than either a node in the web of Norse society. He held land, commanded loyalty, sat at the center of legal disputes, gift-giving networks, and political strategy. He was the glue between kings and commoners, the one whose favor meant protection, whose insult could mean blood. And if you walked through the forests, over the hills, across the coastal ridges of Viking lands, you would know a Jarl's Hall when you saw it. Imagine the scene. A great hall, long and timber-framed, built on a slight rise above the surrounding land. It stands proud, with carved beams that catch the wind. The roof is steep, layered with overlapping wooden shingles, often weighed down with stones to withstand storms. At night, its tall windows glow faintly. Inside, fire dances on thick wooden columns, each carved with the forms of beasts, knots, and gods. A central hearth runs the length of the room, casting waves of heat and smoke upward into the rafters. Fur-lined benches run along the walls. At the head of the hall, raised slightly on a platform, sits the high seat, the Jarl's throne, flanked by ceremonial spears or painted shields. It is a place of power. But tonight, it is a place of feasting. Feasts in Viking society were not merely indulgent meals. They were political tools, sacred rites, the glue of society. They marked alliances. They sealed marriages. They followed raids and successful voyages. They commemorated births and mourned the dead. They were, above all, displays of generosity, of wealth, of influence. And at their center was the Jarl, giver of gifts, provider of food, arbiter of stories. The meal begins slowly. First, the arrival. You are announced by name. A servant, often a freedman, calls you into the hall. Your name carries weight, but the way it is spoken, the people it is spoken in front of, that matters more. You remove your outer cloak. The cold outside stays on your shoulders like frost. Inside, the air is warm, heavy with the smell of roasted meat, smoke, spiced ale, and pine wood. You are handed a drinking horn. It's full. You must drink. To refuse would be a silent insult. The mead is strong honey sweet, but sharp with fermentation. It warms your stomach. Your thoughts begin to soften. The Jarl's wife, or his mother, oversees the seating. She knows the hierarchy, knows who sits where, knows who's at peace, and who must be kept apart. You are seated across from someone important. You nod, exchange a few words. Perhaps you both fought in the same campaign. Perhaps you once argued over grazing rights. But tonight, all is calm. The food arrives. Trays of meat boar, venison, lamb, fish, smoked or stewed. Bowls of stewed turnips, barley porridge with butter, flatbread, and pickled greens. A servant carries a plate of horse meat, a delicacy in some regions. Another offers seal fat, sliced thin, served on a sliver of ice. You eat slowly. There will be more rounds. Between each course, a toast. And with each toast, a memory or a story. There are skalds here, 2 poets. They are not entertainers. They are archivists. They stand near the fire, reciting verses that twist like braid songs of past deeds, of ancestral pride, of gods and monsters. Each word is chosen, weighted. You listen. Because to listen is to honor. To remember is to belong. The Jarl watches all. He speaks sparingly, but when he does, the room listens. He raises his horn slowly, drinks deeply, then gestures to the next guest. It is your turn. You rise. You are expected to speak, Perhaps a short toast, a compliment, a tale of your last voyage. You must be gracious. Humble, but not too humble. You speak clearly, then sit. The Jarl nods. You have passed another test. Beyond the hall, the alliances are moving. A marriage may be proposed before the final course. Two men may leave the table as enemies and return as oath brothers. Gifts may change hands under the table rings. Keys, silver coins, even land tokens carved from bone. And all of this is watched. Witnessed. A feast is not private. It is recorded. In memory, converse. Even the clothing tells stories. The Jarl wears fine wool, dyed deep red, a color that took precious matter root to create. His brooches are silver, his belt chased in bronze. His wife wears a linen underdress, a blue wool apron, fastened with ornate turtle brooches. From them hang keys, a comb, a blade. She is not silent. She greets guests. She glares when someone speaks. Out of turn. She offers toasts. And when she rises, others sit straighter. In this world, power is displayed through poise. And both man and woman hold it. Among the elite, there is also danger. Honor is sacred. A spilled drink, a joke too sharp, a sideways glance. These things are remembered. In some feasts, brawls have broken out, knives drawn over insult, shields raised between guests. That is why witnesses are always present. Men who carry no weapon, but sit near the door, trusted by the Jarl, quick with their hands. Tonight, though, all is calm. The hall glows. The storm outside has faded. You take another bite of roast lamb, and let the warmth of it coat your ribs. The gifts come after the last horn is emptied. The Jarl rises. He thanks his guests, not with words alone, but with objects. To one, a gold ring. To another, a carved cup. To you, perhaps, a brooch finely made, its edges traced with knotwork. The gift is not random. It speaks. It says, I remember. It says, you are mine. It says, when I call, you will come. This is the contract of Norse nobility. Not parchment, not signature, but gesture. Eventually, you leave the hall. Your head is light, your heart heavier than before, in a good way. The night has deepened. The snow crunches underfoot. The sky is clear, stars scattered across it like spilled barley. Behind you, the Jarl's hall still glows, still hums. Inside, the fire will burn until dawn. And in the days to come, the things said tonight will be repeated. The deals made will be tested. The gifts given will be weighed against loyalty. And the Jarl, he will remember everything, because that is what power requires. Among the Vikings, the elite did not rule by decree alone. They ruled by feast. By presence. By the ability to make others feel remembered. And in a world shaped by memory, that is a form of immortality. The wind rises once again, not with cold now, but with the warmth of breath and ash. The hall is behind us. The feast is over. The night grows long. You have seen how the Vikings lived in hunger and in plenty, in mud and in mead halls. And now we return back to the quiet. To the flickering hearth. To the deep sleep of history. And so our journey through the Viking world comes to an end. We have felt the cold breath of winter inside a smoke-darkened home, walked the long road of exile and ambition beside a king, listened at the edges of burial ships and their silent promise of journeys beyond death, and feasted in the warm halls of power, where words and wine sealed the bonds of a people. Through hardship and honor, fire and frost, the Vikings lived lives both brutal and beautiful, anchored by family, driven by belief, and always watched by the gods. Their world may be gone, but its echoes remain. In the earth, beneath our feet. In the rivers that once carried their ships. In the stories we still whisper when the night is long, and the stars are bright dots. So now, let the stillness return. Let the past fold itself back into silence. Let your breath slow, like the tide after storm, like snow falling through trees. You are safe here. The fire is warmed out, and the long sleep awaits. Until next time, good night.